time for PMS. But what we can confirm to you is that per our checks and the numbers that we have so far, we can confirm to you that Baba Jamal is actually MP-elect for Ayawaso East constituency. And this is the constituency that houses the seat of government, which is the flagstaff or the Jubilee House. It's actually in Ayawaso East. And they have decided today, and a lot of numbers to chew on here on PMS Press. And we'll walk you through the numbers. And importantly, what we'll look at is what we call the gap analysis. How is the fish curve looking like so far? Has it closed? Who lost more points? Did the gap close? We will get to know shortly. But this is the curve that I'm talking about. This has been the outlook of Ayawaso East since 1992. We decided to start from 1996 because you all know 1992 almost an outline, almost our election analysis. But as you can see, this is predominantly a green constituency. It has never voted MPP in its entire history of voting in either presidential or parliamentary election. And you can see that the NDC, their winning margin is usually within a very considerably significant margin between what the MPP gets in every election. And the average they've been getting over the years has been around 65%. And they made history in 2024 election where they got about 70% of the total valid vote cast. And that was what they were hoping to actually safeguard or possibly maintain. You heard them, they're saying that what they were projecting to get between 70 and 75. 75. Why is that number important? It tells an important story. We will discuss that very soon when my guest joins me on the show. But definitely what you're saying is that both the NPP and the NDC per our provisional result that we are getting. We're still waiting for the EC to declare the official result. But provisional result coming in so far, what we can tell you is that both political parties drop numbers in Ayawaso East constituency. And as you can see, the NDC dropping from the highs of 70.8% to 63 based on the provisional data that we have. NPP, on the other hand, also dropping significantly from 29%. They were hoping to close the gap, but they've dropped from 29% to now talking about 23% in Ayawaso East. So you can see the fish curve closing the gap. The question is, do you see any gap closing? No gap has been closed because both political parties actually drop, percentage points in this particular election. And I'll show you an important number that would explain to you why, this is important in terms of why we are seeing these numbers. And just look at it. This is where the whole show or the whole game will end because whatever happens will have an impact on Parliament. As it stands now, Baba Jamal is MP-elect, and that will simply mean that the NDC get to have about 180 members of Parliament, super majority in Parliament. As you can see, the donut chart, they occupying a significant part of Parliament. And when they sit in Parliament, you saw it during the Sona reading where there was a part that was white, NDC, there was a part that was black, MPP, and you saw this chart reflecting in the House of Parliament. On the floor, you saw that still we're going to have 87 MPs for the MPP and 4 people still going, being independent in Parliament. And if you're talking about Ayawaso East, it's one constituency that almost every election year you have a third force. It has never gone to any parliamentary election without either an independent candidate or another person contesting the two political parties. So it's an interesting constituency that we've been looking at. In terms of the turnout, I'll tell you the number very soon. We've had numbers around, low turnout. What is the number looking at so far? But we were expecting close to about 50,000 people to turn out to vote. We know it's a heavily Muslim community and Ramadan period, people are fasting. There are so many factors that possibly affected turnout today. We heard in the afternoon from some of the voters who said that they don't think that this is even a national election. Why do they even have to go out and vote? All of those factors played an important role in a number that I'll show you very soon. But we were expecting some 50,000 people to go out and vote. But how did it look at in terms of 113 polling stations? This is what we got. In fact, 2024, Ayawaso East had about 63% turnout, reflecting what happened across the length and breadth of the country. National turnout was also around the same, margin. And today, we are talking about close to about half, that turnout number being half to 34% based on what we are tracking so far. Still provisional data that we are bringing to you. Turnout, very, very low, simply means that if it's a sample, about 10 of the over 5,000, close to over 5,000 registered voters that we were expecting to vote today in the Ayawaso by-election, only about 4 of them turn out. And it means that 6 out of every 10 you sample couldn't actually turn out to vote in this particular by-election. So the numbers not looking good so far in terms of the turnout. But we can confirm to you that Baba Jamal is MP-elect. And after this short break, my guest will join me. We will come and will account for the outcome of the election. But even before we go on break, Fatal Bayaga is our man on ground. He has updates. Fatal, what can you report? Hello, Fatal, can you hear me?
Baba Jamal just made a majestic entry into the Collation Center where the major part of this particular election is ongoing. The collation is still underway, but outside of the Collation Center, it's been a very interesting atmosphere with many supporters of Baba Jamal, thrown into jubilation when he arrived here. Some of them were drumming, others dancing, showing that they are clearly excited with the election so far. In fact, many of them who are gathered here this evening say that Baba Jamal is the best person to lead the Ayawaso East constituency, and at the moment it looks like it's been very clear to them that he is the man to lead the constituency. In fact, the NDC did its own collation and then said that their daughter suits that Baba Jamal is the one who is going to be the next member of parliament for this particular constituency. And from the inside, what we are gathering is that in the next few minutes, the EC itself will declare the results as Baba Jamal has gone into the Collation Center. But let's try to engage more people here to, in a way, appreciate their mood as far as this particular election is concerned. The atmosphere here has been very, very, very tense, with many police officers themselves stationed here to ensure that there is law and order and to protect lives. But let me speak with a lot more people. Hello, thank you very much. You are live on Joy News. I saw Baba Jamal entering the Collation Center. Yeah. It looks like we are getting close to that point where he will be officially declared as Member of Parliament elect for this particular constituency. Your thoughts on what you've witnessed here so far?
Oh yeah, right now he just entered in, and we are about to declare him as the MP elect. That's why I say by the good work of the people done for him, show that he is the one who will lead the Ayawaso East constituency with a full massive votes. And by the grace of God, the youth have played their part for him massively. Secondly, he's about to deliberate everything what he said to the people of Ayawaso East concerning job creation for the youth. Right now, very soon, we are about to declare him as MP elect. But Thursday, he's going to work as an MP in the parliament. I hope we all remember his good efforts, his good legacy in the party.
Thank you very much. So, Kofi, interestingly, 5 people were eyeing this particular sport. Baba Jamal appears to be the one who would win this particular election. But you see behind me a lot of people here in front of the Collation Center. All of these people, in fact, before Baba Jamal came here, it was quite empty. But immediately he arrived with a mammoth crowd of young people who say that they believe in his vision. They know that he's a person who will change the misfortunes of the constituency. Misfortunes because they say that unemployment appears to be quite high here, and they want a lot more things to be done in order to help this particular constituency. Let me speak with some youth here. You are a young person in this particular constituency. So you live in this particular constituency. What do you expect to see from this new MP?
Jamal is a good person. So we need Baba Jamal to come and stand for us, because in those days we have Sheikh Isikwe. After Sheikh Isikwe, we don't have anybody in parliament. So now we need to represent Baba Jamal to Baba Jamal help the youth to go forward, to do everything. So thank you. Yes.
Thank you very much. So Kofi, as you can see in front of me, a lot of police officers in their helmets, they have created a barricade to prevent these young people from accessing the inner perimeter of the Collation Center. In fact, it nearly turned into a spectacle when Baba Jamal arrived here, because the young people wanted to go inside with him. They wanted to see this man inside the Collation Center, but the police officers here would not allow them in at this point. So it's been quite a very tense atmosphere in front of the Collation Center, and we are monitoring all the developments as they unfold. And Kofi, I will be your eyes here. I would bring you all the updates as far as this particular election is concerned, particularly outside of the Collation Center. Blow by blow account of all the things that will happen here, minutes after minutes.
Well, definitely Fatah Bayaga, our man on ground, and as he said, we'll bring you every update from ground. But we can confirm to you that Baba Jamal is MP-elect for Ayawaso East constituency, and here on PM Express we'll be analyzing the outcome of this particular election. And as you can see, that there's a constituency that is actually pregnant with a lot of youth, and just like I said, it's the same constituency that actually houses the seat of government, which is the Jubilee House, is actually in the Ayawaso East constituency. And if there's any constituency that sees the president in a day more than any other constituency, is the Ayawaso East constituency. And after this short break, my guests will join me and we'll test the outcome of this particular election. What are the numbers looking at? And what do they actually mean in terms of the turnout numbers, the winning percentage, and even the reorganization of the opposition? Stay with me. After this short break, we'll be back. Thank you very much for staying with us here on PM Express. And PM Express, as you always know, is brought to you by Syntestang, Air Strong, Air Tough, Pepsodent Cavity Fighter Toothpaste, and Stambek Bat CIT. And we are bringing you a continuous live coverage of what is happening in the Ayawaso East by-election. And we have our men and women on ground. Stephen Mensah and Jamal will join me shortly. But we also have our guests who will be helping us break down the outcome of this particular election. Vera Abina Edu is Programs Officer of CDD. She's joining us also via Zoom. But before we even get to our guests, let me go live on grounds and speak to Stephen and Gemma. I mean, we are seeing Baba Jamal. He's taking his seat, cladded in white, with, I believe, his wife sitting by him, waiting to be declared winner of this particular election. But we can confirm that, per what we know in terms of the data we have gathered so far, is actually telling that Baba Jamal is on his way back to Parliament after that dramatic turn of events in terms of what happened in the parliamentary primaries. And even look at his own political journey from Akwetia, where in 2008 he won that seat for the MPP, looking at how competitive Akwetia was at that point in time. Very swing constituency. He won it for the NDC, maintained that seat in 2012, but lost it in a dramatic way to Amase in 2016. And since 2016, Baba Jamal has been attempting to come back to Parliament through the route of Akwetia, and that has not been successful. But today, he is on his way back to Parliament. This time around, not on the tickets of Akwetia or not representing the people of Akwetia, but rather a new constituency, the constituency that houses the seat of government, which is the Jubilee House. He is going to represent the Ayawaso East constituency in Parliament. Baba Jamal, just like we showed you in the shot where he's seated, waiting for that official declaration from the EC, and seated by him is his wife. He's been having conversations with her. I understand it has not been an easy journey, but we've brought you numbers around the low turnout, and I'll be picking the thoughts of Jamal and Stephen. They have been monitoring what has been going on ground since morning. They also bring in CDD to also comment on the outcome of this particular election. It's been very, very smooth, a very peaceful one, not one that you can actually attribute a lot of violence. No violence reported so far in terms of what we are looking at since morning. But Stephen and Jamal, if you can hear me, I want to know, Baba Jamal is seated now. We simply are waiting for the EC to do the declaration now. First of all, tell me, we are still waiting for full results from all 113 polling stations. How many have we done so far, and what is the dashboard looking like in terms of Baba Jamal's, imminent return to Parliament?
So just a few minutes ago, the EC projected the number of results they have entered so far. 110 polling station results have been entered, 3 pending, and the dashboard, over 16,000 people cast their ballots today, and that's what they displayed a few minutes ago. And so we just have about 3 polling station results to be entered so that the EC can finally come out to declare the results of the election. But we saw in your shots earlier, Baba Jamal, who is the NDC candidate, he's seated waiting for the EC to declare the results. Earlier when he walked in, he actually exchanged pleasantries with the NPP parliamentary candidate Yusuf and other members of the party before he took his seat finally. So as it is now, we are waiting for 3 results to be entered, and we will finally get to the moment where the EC will declare the results of the Ayawaso East by-election. But my colleague Stephen has been following this process right from the get-go, and we are here at the final moment. Stephen, how would you describe today's voting process?
I'd say it's been a calm one right from the start in the morning when preparations were underway for the elections. It was a calm one. The Muslims are preparing for they are doing their Ramadan, so it was a calm one. When we go here in the morning, preparations for the grounds in this constituency, the polling stations we visited, preparations were underway. You notice the polling material, the voting materials being arranged, the barricades at the polling stations also being arranged. The police visibility in the polling stations also massive.
And also, one of the issues that came up earlier was the fact that people did not turn out in their numbers to vote. I spoke to Sakibu, the constituency executive for the NDC, and he said that the Ramadan is one of the main reasons why the people didn't come out in the numbers to vote. When you were roaming around, did you get the sense that that was the reason why we are recording low turnout?
Yes. The Ramadan was not the only contributing factor to the voting, the low turnout. From what we gathered from the presiding officers, the Christians are also doing their Lent fast, and that was also one of the contributing factors. We understand from the presiding officers was a contributing factor to the low turnout. Today is a weekday also, so from what we gather also, people are going about their normal businesses, they are working, so it's not really a convenient time for them to come out to come and vote. Not an excuse, but yeah, that was some of the contributing factors. It's interesting because one of the polling stations we visited, it had about 169 voters expected was 169. By the time we visited, we had about 45 people. That was around 2 p.m., 3 p.m. That was a massive turn down. Low voter turnout. That was how from all the polling stations we visited, that was the sense we were getting from the polling stations we visited.
But one thing we can't downplay is the police visibility. They were on the ground in their numbers. Some of them fully armed. We learned that aside from the police officers who were stationed at the various polling stations, there were other police officers who were patrolling the community or the constituency. And then we had the Robocop, the police who were dressed like robots, so with a shield and headgear. How do you think this impacted the election, and how peaceful we are saying that it is or it was?
I think the police did a pretty good job. Given prior to this elections, there was a debate that was held among all the aspirants. They had 4 of the aspirants there, and they pretty much made it very clear that community sensitization will be going on before, during, and after this election, and it has pretty much worked out. You will notice that police will be roaming in and around this constituency right from 6 a.m. when we go here, all throughout to now. When we go out, you see the tactical force outside, positioned outside, and it was pretty evident in almost all the police stations we visited. And I think that contributed to cooling down the tempers in almost all the constituencies, given that we noticed that, or from what we understand, this is a perception that's out there, that the Nima community is a pretty rowdy one. But then the police have made it clear that, yes, we want all tempers down. And the police visibility made sure that all this was down.
We can't take away Baba Jamal and the controversies surrounding the NDC's parliamentary primary. You covered that, and the issues of vote buying. When you visited these polling stations today, did that come up? Because for the polling stations that I visited, there were no allegations of vote buying.
Yes, so there were some allegations here and there, but then these are not things we saw for ourselves as facts. But then there were accusations from the NPP, trading blames that the NDC is vote buying, they are buying votes, they are giving out monies to electors to come and vote. But then these are not things we could see or attest to this for ourselves. Yeah.
And in a few minutes' time, we should be right. So on the dashboard, you see 113 polling stations. The results have actually been entered. So now there are no outstanding polling station results to be entered. And so there you have it. Total votes cast 17,048. Rejected ballots 120. Total number of polling stations 113. And the number of polling stations they have validated, or they have actually entered, 113. And there are no polling stations yet to enter the results. So within some few minutes, the moments that we have been waiting for, the election or the voting process started at 7 a.m., polls closed at 5 p.m. We have been at the Collation Center. Sorting and counting started right after polls closed, and we have been here at the Collation Center collating the results. As you can see from the dashboard, that is over, and we're expecting that the EC in any moment from now will be announcing the results of the Ayawaso East by-election. We will know who the MP-elect is, but the NDC is very confident that with some 60% of the votes cast, Baba Jamal is the MP-elect. So we'll wait to hear that from the Electoral Commissioner. The Electoral Commission, when they announce the results any moment from now. Kofi, so that's what is happening here. You've seen for yourself. The results, all the results have been entered, and we are waiting for the EC to announce the winner for this particular by-election. The NPP candidate is here, the NDC candidate is here. Also, earlier we spoke to the independent candidate, David Kano, and others. They are all here. Their party, some of the party agents are also here. So we should be getting the results declared very soon, Kofi, sooner rather than later. Has been a very long day. The police have played their part. The media, we have been giving you the updates, and Stephen, it will be coming to an end very soon. Yeah. And I don't.
All right, just like you heard from Gemma and Stephen, 17,000 is the total valid vote cast at the moment. And just like we painted a picture to you, turnout has been very, very low. You're comparing 17,000 to the expected close to about 50,000, registered voters that we were expecting to vote in this particular election. And turnout, per our calculation, stands around 34%, relatively lower than the 63% we saw in that same constituency in the 2024 presidential and parliamentary elections, especially the parliamentary one. But I want to pick the thoughts of Verabna Ado, who is programs officer at the CDD. They have done their own independent monitoring. And in fact, first number that would definitely catch your attention, Vera, is the turnout, 34%. Was that expected? Hello, Vera, if you can hear me, kindly unmute.
You.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So, well, by-election consistently have recorded lower turnout, so it's not surprising. And it's also, it's more like a global trend over the years. We have seen how our by-elections have turned out to be. So most of the time people think that these by-elections are not high stakes. We could also say election fatigue. It doesn't get the national attention as you get from the general election. So this is, for me, it is not surprising because this is how our most by-elections have turned out to be. So, but again, I think it calls for much more deeper conversation about how most of the time, we limit political participation to only general election. It means that we need to do continuous citizen engagement. If it was a general election, you will see a lot of mobilization, a lot of public education, the Electoral Commission, NCC, civil society, religious leaders, a lot more effort to encourage people to participate. But when it's by-election, because we think it's more local than national, we tend to leave most of the mobilization to the political parties, and we see a lot more low voter turnout. So, well, this is really not surprising looking at the numbers and over the years how people have turned out to vote. And I listened to your reporters on the field as well. They mentioned the Ramadan is also a weekday. So perhaps as we think about reforms for our general election and the call for considering the change of date and time for general election, maybe we have to also look into by-elections as well.
Let's look at the lead up to this particular by-election, especially the internal primaries that was had by the NDC. There were a lot of vote buying allegation. I don't know if your decks picked any form of vote buying allegation in the main by-election that actually happened today.
No, so Kodio could not deploy observers to the field directly. All the things we have been seeing is we are monitoring from what the media is reporting. So we do not have observers directly on the field. So we haven't also picked much of the vote buying on the E-Day election. I think that your reporter also mentioned that there were some allegations, but they did not observe it. Where we saw what came before. And so when you talk about electoral integrity and vote buying, it's not just only what happens on election day, but lead up to the election, the campaign period, the primaries. These are all important parts of it that we need to consider. So we do not just only focus on election day vote buying, but even the processes that lead to the election day activity. And it looks like it's a worrying trend that consistently our politics have become so monetized that inducements, vote buying, that it's really not helping us. We need to have a second look at it. And this is something that we've been pushing for a very long time, that it's important that we look at laws regarding our election and our campaigning period, because politicians must tell us where they're getting their money. Yes, citizens must also understand that whatever money that is spent, they will have to find a way to get their money back. And so if we if you sell your votes, it means that that's the end. Why do you expect them to do anything in your community for you? So I think it's a conversation that we've been talking about. The politicians themselves have been complaining really about how much they spend to get to serve their citizens. So I guess a lot of work is being done now. I think we've seen that the citizens have spoken. The NDC party have also taken some action. And I'm hoping that with this by-election at Ayawaso East, it will have to get all the political parties to have a second look at our regulations. CDD Ghana has been calling for some new legislation in our political financing. We think that either through amendments of the Political Parties Act or a new legislation, whatever it is, it's important for us to look again at how money is influencing our politics. Gradually realize that it's no longer violence in our elections, but rather monetization, and it's not really helpful. We need to have a look at it, and we shouldn't just allow money to influence the politics that we do at the local level.
Now, talking about violence and even the presence of security personnel, today, what the intelligence we gathered was that if you look at the Ayawaso East by-election, for instance, you had police deployments of about 80 police personnel to each polling station. Many will say that this is good, but there are some who say that, well, if you look at the heavy presence, the security presence in the constituency itself, could be a key deterrent to people who would want to come out to vote because they see the security present, policemen who are armed in the constituency, and that makes it difficult for especially women to come out to vote. I don't know if your organization is also thinking about the same, on the same tangent in terms of the heavy presence of security in our election. Is it the case that when we do not have that heavy presence, we simply will not have a peaceful election?
Yeah, so it's worrying for me personally. I think that we mentioned this during the Akwatia by-election,
exactly,
the heavy security presence. We need to get to the point where we need to get to a point that citizens can go out to the polling station to vote without any fear that something could happen. If you look at the police deployment, the number of police that were deployed, that is a cost to the states. So for me, I don't think for by-election at one constituency, well, it's good, it helps, but this is not how we have to go. So imagine if there were other elections, if we're having other elections, are we able to deploy 80,000 to every other polling station? That's not feasible. It's a lot of costs that comes to the state. So we need to still continue to have a conversation around election security. We need to have the parties to commit to ensuring that our elections will be violence-free. Every citizen can go out freely to vote and will not fear that something will happen. So yes, it's good that we have the police taking up charge and ensuring that nothing happened. But again, can we sustain this? But I also saw from your reporting earlier from the field where the electoral officers were transporting the boxes to the collation center. It seems to be, I thought it was quite, the atmosphere was not that tense. If I should say, but not that tense. And I thought that was a good one. Gradually, we are getting there. What is important is that the Ghana police, political parties have to commit to it because it's a lot of financial burden on the states. The number of police that we deploy, that we are not able to sustain it. It's election. You have to go and vote, and each of us have one vote. So why do we have to fight? Why do we have to kill each other? And this is something that we must all commit. Citizens must understand that there's no need for us to fight. Political parties must not incite their followers. And we expect the police also to do their parts on it. So it's good, but I think that, again, we may not be able to sustain the heavy deployment. And it's also not too good for us. It could indeed cause some fear and intimidation among people around and that they may not want to come out to vote. But looking at the nature of how our by-elections have been, I guess the police had their own intelligence and the reasons why. they had to deploy that heavy security. But going forward, I think it's something we've been raising concerns about, that we do not need the heavy security at that point.
I was actually looking at the numbers at some of the polling stations, and as our reporters did put out, there were polling stations that, in fact, the presiding officers were able to give us details of the number of women and men who are, in terms of the gender distribution, the gender mix of those who have come to cast their ballots. And I picked a few of them, and you realize that the turnout for women was actually very low. Would you attribute, the heavy security presence, or also the reason why we had, women turning out low? There were also others who were blaming it on the fact that there's also a Ramadan season. You look at the fact that women will have to also prepare for the following day, because, it's a fasting season, and they need to do everything right at home. So in terms of the key factors that possibly could have led to the low turnout we've seen, I know we record very low turnouts in by-election, but 34%, very, very low. But in terms of the heavy security present, how did it really affect, the voting pattern in terms of how women came out to vote?
Okay, so I am not able to attribute the low turnout to the heavy security. I'm not sure. Well, like I said, our by-elections generally tend to have low turnout. So we may have to have some further quick survey or research to find out why the women did not come out. But again, it's a weekday. I'll be interested to know how were the young people, what was the voter turnout for the youth as well, because most of it, when the youth mobilize themselves, they are able to come out in their numbers. We've also seen that most of the time, young people tend not to really participate in the by-elections because they think that it's not, there's no high stake to it. It's not a national election. So I'm not sure only women, but let's look at, maybe we have to have a look at the data again, look at the women, let's look at young people, let's look at why, and all the polling stations. There could be other reasons, but this is not really strange, looking at our numbers for by-elections over the years. And it's also a global trend as well. It's not only Ghana, over other countries as well. Anytime there's a by-election, you have low turnouts. There's also election fatigue. We just came out from election not too long ago. And you realize that the Ayawaso is also a strong NDC area. Even the NPP kept saying it, that this is NDC stronghold. So perhaps many thought that, well, it's obvious that the NDC is going to win this seat, so why do I go out and vote? So there could be a number of factors, and well, the intimidation from the security could also be a reason, and not only women. I'm sure young people, other men sometimes could also be intimidated by the heavy presence of the security.
Now, let's look at the impact of whatever happens today. It's actually telling that Baba Jamal has actually won, and our projection shows that he's the MP-elect for Ayawaso East constituency. Let's look at the impact. Let's look at the Baba Jamal as a person, right? Somebody who moved from Akwetia, that constituency in the eastern region, now is going back to Parliament on a different, representing a different constituency. And in fact, another interesting factor in this whole equation is the fact that he left his position as, High Commissioner to Nigeria to become an MP. I want to understand, in terms of such a decision, is it that Parliament has become so lucrative that somebody will leave such a high position to decide to come and contest for a by-election and find his way to Parliament?
That's a difficult one. But he himself said that he think he can best serve as a member of Parliament. So I'm not sure what is in Parliament that he would leave. But sometimes we who are outside may have different perception about what's supposed to be a better option for people. But we all have our own ways that we think we can best serve. This is being a high commissioner is quite diplomatic, and if he says I can't be a diplomat, I want to come and serve in Parliament, I want to debate, I want to make law, I think this is a personal decision, and the constituents have also voted for him. So I guess we don't have much on that to say. this is something that I think he committed to, and the electorates have also voted for him. So I guess
let's tell the story. Let's tell the stories behind the numbers. I'm seeing per our projection 63% for him. That's a big drop from the 70.8% that the deceased MP got in the 2024 election. Do you think this has any form of bearing on the ratings for the president in terms of his job approval or the NDC in terms of their governance in general?
I'm sorry, I lost you for a
few
seconds.
I mean, just trying to get the stories behind the numbers we are seeing today. The deceased MP in 2024 got over 70% in terms of the total valid vote cast. Today we are looking at somewhere around 63% for Baba Jamal. And I'm asking a very simple question of the significant drop in the share of votes. Does it have any bearing on, let's say, the acceptance rate or the job ratings of maybe what is happening in the country? Does it have any impact on how Ghanaians are actually rating the governance of the NDC at the moment?
It's hard to tell. Well, let's say by-elections are local. They are also smaller in scale, but they also test the strength of our democratic institutions. They are more like an institutional stress test. We are looking at electoral management, how prepared our ECs are. It helps to build the public trust, the confidence in the electoral management bodies. It helps the police to also set up their own infrastructure for us to see how they are prepared to protect the integrity of our electoral process. The parties also used to test their own mobilization tools and all of that. But if you look at the numbers, I think that 63% is also quite, looking at the turnout and 63%, it's still a good number. It's a good percentage for him.
But you know, this is an NDC stronghold, and if statistics and sampling is anything to go by, it definitely will mean that if you look at how that constituency behaves in the last 2 elections, right? If you should sample 10 registered voters, you are likely to get 7 of them who will say they'll vote for the NDC. Is that not also playing an impact, saying that, well, no matter the turnout, NDC should still be able to get over 70%, especially being a government in power?
I actually was hoping to see the numbers for one of the independent candidates. I realized that someone is it
exactly they're one break away from the NDC, Omar Sanda, but unfortunately, combined weren't even able to get about 2% of the votes.
Oh, that's a shame, because when I saw the numbers coming in, he seems to be getting some good numbers from some of the polling stations. So it's by election, and I don't think it could be a good reflection on what is going on in the country. But again, if it is what's going on in the country, 63% is still a good win for the NDC, and being able to retain the seat, I think that is a good one for them. If it had come to it, I don't think it was a difficult seat to
maintain
for
right?
the NDC, because to maintain. It looks like it was something that if the NPP kept saying it's a stronghold of the NDC, is a stronghold of the NDC. So even for the NPP, they understood that this is not a seat that they were going to win, but they still did put up a good fight. But looking at the numbers, I think that is still a good number for Baba Jamal. It may not be at 70. These are 2 individuals. These are 2 personalities. So it also tells us that sometimes voters are not only voting for parties, they're also voting for candidates. And looking at the vote turnout, I guess this is something he can do with 63% is a good, and it's also first past the post. So I guess whatever it is, he gets to win and go to parliament to represent the constituents.
Let's also look at what happened during the NDC's internal primaries, electing who to actually lead a party in Ayawaso East, where initially there were those who preferred that the wife of the deceased MP takes over, because we've seen templates across the length and breadth of the country, and unfortunately she could not make it through the primaries. And then there were those who were not happy so much with what happened, especially accusing Baba Jamal of vote buying and all of that. Would you say that you had supporters of maybe those who came from the camps of the widow and who decided that, well, because maybe we are not part of the election, we simply do not see the MPP as an alternative. So why don't we just stay home and not go out to vote?
Well, that could be a possibility. Maybe aftermath of the election, assessments will also be very helpful, both parties or candidates could have a look at this and look at why the numbers. But again, maybe we may, if we have to go back to all the by-elections we've had, looking at the timing, this is really not surprising. I guess it's really not something that we could say much about. For the primaries, I think internally, I'm sure the party still had a way of mobilizing the base to come out and vote for their persons. But today is a weekday, like I said earlier. If there have been a number of reforms conversation that we've been talking about for the general election. And so maybe I think that perhaps we need to really consider by-election as well. And also, most of the time after general election, all of us just leave. And then we think that participation will come, people will just come back after 4 years to start the conversation again. It tells us that democracy requires constant engagement, constant education. You don't just leave the citizens alone. Election fatigue could set in. We have just come out from election. It's an NDC stronghold. People have different reasons. So for the voter turnout, I don't think it's something that maybe I think that both parties, I know some of them would want to take up and find out why, and they may want to find out the reason behind the low numbers. But like I said, it's really not surprising. It's actually a global trend in the various areas as well. Anytime there's a by-election, you realize that typically lower than in general election. Most of the time it's influenced by how the parties themselves will mobilize locally. They perceive that one is it's nothing at all. And as I mentioned also, if it was a general election, you will see Codeo, NCC, Electoral Commission, all of us, everybody would tend to come up and support with the education, civic education. But now, we are not even on the field. We couldn't organize ourselves due to some financial logistics. We couldn't train and deploy observers. So it shows that we should not just think that this is just a local election, but it has implications on our national election. But generally, I think that it will be good for both parties and to look into it. But I still think that 33%, based on the numbers you are mentioning to me, is still a good win for him to go to Parliament. Yeah.
To go to Parliament is very key, and let's look at how Baba Jamal will be welcomed, because, at a point in time after that internal primaries, you had the leadership of the majority saying that they were going to probe, and they weren't really happy with the allegations of vote buying. He's won now, per the checks we've done. How do you think, in terms of his welcome to Parliament, how will it be like? Knowing that you're going back to Parliament where your leadership at a point in time weren't so happy with you winning the primaries, the way Mana A was won. How do you think that Baba Jamal will be welcomed to Parliament?
I have no idea, but Baba Jamal is a senior politician, if I should put it that way. This is not his first time. He was also selected by the president as an ambassador to Nigeria, which is the largest economy in Africa. So I'm sure the president knows his capabilities, why he appointed him, and I'm sure he'll be fine. The parties they always have a way of resolving their differences. So, but for the vote buying, I think it's a concern that we supported the decision by the majority to set up a committee to investigate. And I think that the committee led by Honorable Inusa gave out their own concerns. I think that the reasons they gave were quite fair. If you look at some of the reasons, the timelines and all, their internal constitution also did not give them the opportunity to do what they wanted to do on radio. So we're able to pull all these resources together to ensure that I'm sure Papa Jamal will be able to, if he wouldn't mind, to share with us how much he spent on his campaign, but you can imagine how much it costs even for the items that have to be distributed. But obviously, we also understand that it's not just the buying of votes, the selling of votes. We have seen delegates who will boldly say that if you don't give us this, we will not vote. No this, no that. If you don't do this, we will not do it. And they mean it. So most of them have become entitled to that. And that's also something that, as we look at the buying of votes, we also need to look at the selling of votes. Let me just prove what the numbers from the CDD survey about how much candidates are spending. In the previous, we did for the 2012, 2020 elections, 2024, and then you're able to do some estimation, and then you realize that where are candidates getting their money from, and all the gaps that you have in our electoral, in the laws, because the laws actually ask that political parties' finances are audited, but it doesn't talk about candidates, and that's what we've been calling for, that it shouldn't just only be political parties, but there's a need for candidates themselves also to tell us where they are getting their money, for the source of their money, to be able to account for it. And so that's why we're calling for the new legislation to ensure that parties are able to account where we know all the monies that are coming in to finance our political campaign, because it will also take away a lot of people from the elections, a lot of young people, a lot of women, because we do not have such resources to nurture a constituency to go into the campaigning, the election day activities. It means that more and more we eliminate people from election, and those who have the highest bidder would rather have to be the winner. So I thought that the move by the NDC was helpful and is progressive, and I hope that the parties will take charge, and this will be something that all parties will come together, and the civil society, CDD Ghana, and the others, I'm sure, will be happy to support them to say that it's enough for us to earn the money in our politics. Let's see how we can regulate how we do our politics in this country. We do not just have to allow everything to just go by. There's the need to ensure that we are regulating things and not let people do whatever they like to do.
Well, definitely you need millions of CDs to actually win an election in Ghana, especially if you're talking about parliamentary election. This is still our extensive coverage of the Ayawaso East by-election, where we can confirm to you that based on the data that we have gathered so far, Baba Jamal is clearly on his way back to Parliament. After our results, so what we have put together shows that he's likely to get about 63% of the total valid vote cast, where Baba Ali, who is actually coming second, will possibly get somewhere around 23%. We have our ears and eyes on ground, our reporters monitoring that for us. Fatal Bayaga is monitoring that for us. Gemma Apia and Stephen Mensah are also on ground, and Jacqueline and Sumayeboa, all of them on ground, bringing you updates on what is happening in Ayawaso East. But we can confirm to you that Baba Jamal is on his way back to Parliament after leaving that position as a High Commissioner to Nigeria. He's clearly on his way back to Parliament, and this is our extensive coverage of the Ayawaso East by-election. And this is PM Express. You stay with us. We'll be back shortly with the results, EC declaration, and reactions from ground.